I don't think this film is actually believable. If the boy had been that sick when he was young, how would he have had the strength to grow into the size of a teenage boy? There are many plot holes with this film, and annoyingly, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. The only thing they need to do differently is change the reason for what's happening. Now, I'm going to explain that with a spoiler warning in a little bit because I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of things they did wrong, but a lot of things they did right. But I won't spoil it to begin with. This is can't come out to play. It was released as The Harvest in America, and The Harvest is a terrible title because, as some people have pointed out, a little bit of a spoiler. I like the title Can't Come Out to Play. This was released in 2015, directed by John McNaughton, and has a really pretty great cast, actually, including Michael Shannon, Samantha Morton, Natasha Calis, and Charlie Tahan. And this is about a boy who is really quite unwell, Andy, and his mother doesn't let him go outside. And this new girl moves to the neighborhood, Maryann. She happens upon Andy's bedroom somehow. It's not as weird as it sounds. Maybe it is, actually. But anyway, she befriends him and she starts to be his friend, but soon she realizes that something's not quite what it seems with this sick boy and the parents. And she takes it upon herself to solve this mystery, and it is a mystery. There are a lot of twists and turns, and I will say it's full of surprises. And I found it really gripping and thrilling, and I thought it was blatantly obvious. I thought it was about a certain thing, which I will talk about in a moment, because I don't want to tell you that it's not about that, just in case you had the same thought. But I thought it was about one thing, turns out it was about something else. That something else could have been interesting, but the timeline is unrealistic. Now, if somebody wants to turn around and tell me that this is actually based on a true story, and this has actually happened, give or take, fair enough. I will hold my hand up and say, actually, if this is realistic, it's phenomenal. But I genuinely don't think it will be. And once I say this one thing, the music is great. It's atmospheric, it's tense, the pacing is fantastic, the characters are great. Apart from Katherine, the mother, I mean, she's fantastically performed. Samantha Morton does a great job with the character. But I wanted to punch her from about the first 5 minutes. I just wanted to put my hands around her neck because she was an absolute word that I can't say on YouTube. Absolutely one of the most hated characters I've ever seen. Credit to the performance, of course. So it ticks all of the right boxes. It's thrilling, it's gripping, it's tense, the music is great, the casting is perfect, the characters are either really brilliant or very annoying in a way that makes the film all the more challenging to watch, actually. The film is very powerful. I was going to give up after the first 15 minutes because I wanted to punch this character so much. But I was so desperate to find out what was happening, because it doesn't reveal too much too quickly, that I had to keep watching it. And part of me is glad I kept watching it, because I found certainly the ending and leading up to it to be quite interesting. But the actual explanation for all of it, I thought, was unrealistic and ruined an entirely gripping narrative. So, spoilers from now. I'm about to explain in detail the biggest plot twist. And I will just say, I do recommend you watch it, because it does have some really strong points. But if you don't want to watch it or you've seen it, feel free to keep listening. Basically, Andy is not actually Andy. He is a boy who was stolen as a baby from a hospital. We need to acknowledge that the parents are actually a doctor and a nurse, mother and father respectively. This boy was stolen as a baby from the hospital because the parents' real son, Jason, was actually really unwell. Jason's actually kept in the basement, hooked up to all these wires and cables, and they've stolen... Well, actually, Andy is in the basement. The real Andy is in the basement. Okay, I'm going to refer to them as the stolen son and the birth son. The birth son is actually in the basement. The stolen son, who has believed his entire life to be their genuine biological son, is in his room, unwell. And the reason for this, they stole him as a baby, the stolen son, because their real son was unwell. So they stole this baby to harvest his organs, to give them to the sick son, to give them a chance of saving their biological son. Fair enough. If they had been young children, toddlers, I can see that working as a narrative. But these boys are, I don't know how old they are, 13, maybe 14? If the baby had been so sick that the only way to make him better was to steal another child for their organs, there is no way that that young baby would have had the strength to grow up into a teenage boy or even a preteen. If he was genuinely that ill, he would not have been able to survive, particularly in a basement, with no stimulation, with no milestones to meet. That would have made him more ill. And it just doesn't make any sense that if he was genuinely that ill, that he needed organs, he wouldn't have been able to grow his own organs to the density that they would have been as a teenager. It just would not have worked. If maybe he was a teenager and became sick and they kidnapped another teenager, that I can understand. It would be a completely different story then. But that would have made sense. Or if they'd kidnapped both as baby, if they'd kidnapped the baby and they were trying to do a transplant on a baby, again, that would have worked, but it would have been a different story. But this doesn't make any sense at all. There is no way you can keep a child from being a baby to being a teenager when they're that sick, and to have them actually grow up to, have muscular development and to have the rest of their body growing at the rate it needs to and their organs growing at the rate they need to. It just wouldn't happen. And if somebody wants to tell me that this did happen and it's based on truth, I will hold my hand up and say, okay, so maybe sometimes miraculous things do happen. But that is a massive plot hole that completely ruins the entire narrative, because for me, it wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen. And I understand, to me, the thing I thought it was, by the way, I thought it was Munchausen's by proxy. I thought Katherine had Munchausen's by proxy, and that's something I'm very fascinated in, so I kind of wish it had been that. It would have been a lot more interesting. But it also seems impossible. The other thing that's worth noting is that there's no way they could have kept that child in the basement. And also they've been making the stolen baby quite sick for a long time, doing experiments and things on him and injecting him with things. And again, there's no way that this would have survived for so long. There are just so many issues with the factual accuracy, and you can say, well, you can suspend disbelief and just enjoy the atmosphere, but I can't. I'm a writer. If I wrote that into a novel, I would be called out straight away for being factually incorrect. So if I can't get away with it, nobody else can. I genuinely enjoyed it until they revealed what had happened, and it suddenly just clicked in my mind as being ludicrous, poorly thought out, poorly developed, and badly written. So I recommend it. It's good until the reveal, but what happens after that? If you take away the who, what, where, why, when, and how, and just focus on the characters' actions at the very end, I will say I was satisfied with that. So it's not perfect. They kind of overlooked one massive plot hole. Aside from that, as an actual film, as a piece of art, pretty alright.